Good afternoon and welcome to Headline London. I'm Claudia Liza Armagh and we're here for the next hour for your news, a bit of discussion and debate. Want to get involved in any of that? Just head over to @London Live and hashtag Headline London. Here's what we've got coming up on our Good Friday show. If you're a Christian, David Cameron wants you to say it loud and proud. But is religion a big deal for young London? Let us know what you think, because that's what we're talking about in our first debate. Love them or hate them, apparently beards are less attractive because they're everywhere. We're celebrating the beard right here on Headline London, dedicating our second discussion to just that.
And I'm live in Surbiton, where this puppet has helped bring together a community.
We've got more on that later, but first up, here are today's headlines. Chief bosses and union leaders will meet on Tuesday to try and head off a planned 5-day strike by the RMT union. At the moment, it's due to happen from April the 28th for 2 days and then again on May 5th for 3 days. But the RMT have told us they're still hopeful of a resolution. 1 in 3 Londoners is born with a gene that increases their chances of developing bowel cancer. That's if they eat processed meat. It's already known that people who eat pies, bacon and sausages were twice as likely to get the disease than those who don't. Now, if you're a Christian, David Cameron wants you to come out and say it loud. That's what he's done. The PM says he's a classic member of the Church of England and seems to think we're living in a more secular society. But is that true of London? As it's Easter, we went out and asked a few Londoners what the Easter weekend means to them.
Vacation, time out, you know, it's quite nice, long weekend.
I'm not really religious myself, but I think it's a nice day for people who are.
It doesn't mean anything particularly to me except for chocolate eggs.
Religion, that's the basis of Easter. And obviously family time as well, spending time with your family.
Going out, getting your cross buns first thing in the morning, big queues at the bakers, and Sunday eating your Easter eggs. Make yourself sick.
So, Easter's not very religious time for most of those guys, but what do you think? Well, our headline question today is London a secular city? Head over to londonlive.co.uk to let us know. We've got a great mix of people today to talk about religion in our city. First up, we have Telegraph journalist and author Tim Stanley, who's a practicing Catholic, Pentecostal Christian Ope Amachi, journalist Sunny Hundao, and Zaki Solosho, who was raised... Sorry, go on. Solosho, thank you very much, Zaki. He was raised as a Muslim, but is now an atheist. So, Zaki, look, I'm going to start with you then. Why is this? Why did you decide to turn your back on religion entirely?
I wouldn't say I'd turn my back on religion entirely as such. There was a point where I did, but I think I'm at a point now where I've had the chance to kind of look back on everything, look back at my experiences throughout my life, and having been born into Islam, I felt growing up as a Muslim, and the reason why I say Muslim is because I don't really know what the word means these days, because it's always down to interpretation depending on how you interpret the Quran, for example. But I find that growing up in Islam, I wasn't able to decipher what it really meant. And I think now, having been not part of the religion for probably about 2 or 3 years now, I can extrapolate what I need to take from the religion in order to live a life that's true to my main religion, which is empathy.
Now, what difference has that made to you living in London? Now that you're not, saying, tying yourself to a certain faith, is life easier for you? Is it more difficult?
I find that life is much easier for me because I ultimately don't have to abide by certain rules that don't fall in line with my own logic.
And Sunny, what are your views then? What are your views of religion in London? Is it something that brings us together as a community, or can it be quite decisive and make things a bit more difficult for you?
Well, you know, I think London's a weird place because you've got all these different religious communities dotted around, and sometimes they don't really integrate as much. So, and I actually think that the great thing about London is its sort of non-religious secularism, you know, that people just going out there and hanging out and meeting each other in the parks, and, you know, rather churches or gurdwaras, etc. I mean, I come from a Sikh background, but I don't practice at all. And, you know, the thing is that London itself makes people much more secular, I think, and it makes people much more cosmopolitan and more open-minded because it's a great city, but also because you can meet so many people from different backgrounds, you kind of push the differences aside a little bit.
Would you agree with that? Does London make you secular?
No, it hasn't made me secular. I think the thing with religion is it used to dominate the public sphere. It doesn't do that anymore. So if you want to experience it, you have to go and find it, which means you might not notice it, but it certainly is there. I live very close to Westminster Cathedral, which is where I worship most Sundays, and I've noticed that it draws an enormous international crowd. I suspect about 50% of that congregation are not actually Londoners. But nonetheless, there is a kind of inclusivity there, because we come from all over London, all over the world, and in that one small place we all celebrate and worship together. But come on, London's full of churches, it's full of religious people of all kind of backgrounds. I just think they don't talk about it enough, and I'm really pleased the Prime Minister's doing that, not because we want to convert anyone, but just because it makes life a little more colourful and enjoyable.
So when you say you go to church, it's mostly got an international congregation. Is that, how do you feel about that? Do you think maybe more Londoners should be going to church more often?
Oh, of course I think they should do that more often.
Why?
Well, it has, for sort of selfish spiritual reasons, I want everyone to convert to Catholicism, of course I do, but also it has enormous proven emotional benefits. People are generally happier when they do it. It's an opportunity to reflect, it's an opportunity to meet people, it's a great thing to do with a Sunday. But I think if we are ever worried about London growing apart, churches are a place where people can meet each other. And as I say, if you go to that cathedral, it's amazing the different languages you hear, but all united by one service, one mass, and one vision of God. It's a very liberal, human thing.
Well, this is something, what's going on at your church, your Catholic church, is the complete opposite what's going on to the kind of church that Opie's going to. Now, you're Pentecostal Christian, and there seems to be some kind of wave of young African descendants going on to Pentecostal churches right now. There's a huge wave, there's a massive influence of people doing that. Would you agree with that?
For sure. I think as most of our parents were brought up in churches, they've encouraged us to go to church. And as a young person going to church myself, I found there was loads of young people that were similar age to myself. And I think we're in church for mostly reasons just because it's something to do on a Sunday a lot of the times with the young African community. And we don't necessarily understand why we're in church when we're really young. It's just because we follow our parents on a Sunday. As I grew up, I found that there was a need, and I understood the reasons why I was in church more. And actually, in church, you do get to meet different types of people, even though generally, as you said, most of them are Africans. You do get to meet people from different walks of life that you may not come in contact with in your everyday environment. So I think that there seems to be a bigger number of young people in the African community, as you said, that do attend church nowadays.
And is it a good thing, would you say?
I think it's a good thing. I think it is, because at first, you may, like I said, I didn't know. I was just in church because my parents took me to church on a Sunday, and I was there and I was bored most of the time. I was just sitting there thinking, when is this going to be over? An hour of my life has been taken away. But as I grew up, it helped to shape me into the person I was. And a lot of these young people may not know why they're in church, but I believe that one day there is hope that they will come to saving grace and they will understand what the need for church is. And it helps me in my life to make better decisions. So I think it's very important.
But the thing is, I get the feeling, and I think this applies to a lot of minorities actually, that the going to church becomes a sort of a struggle for finding your identity, you know. And so I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing, but I think that actually in the same way here, as we're growing up, we do feel like, are you part of the mainstream society or not? So you kind of end up going to church, and from there you kind of derive some form of identity, and there's a struggle with that as well, you know. Do you go along with the requirements of it or not? But I think that there is a problem though. I mean, both of you say that, and there's different problems here. The problem with what Cameron is doing is that actually he's mixing religion with politics, you know, and that's the danger, because he's the Prime Minister, and there is a danger that you sort of say, well, we should not be afraid of talking about Christianity, therefore we're going to have more legislation that, you know, mixes religion with politics. And already this country is not entirely secular. We do have people, bishops elected, unelected, you know, who are there only because they're bishops. And with you, the problem is, I think that's, not with you specifically, the problem there, I think, is that when young people want to use religion as a form of identity, then they end up defining it against other people from different identities and other religions. So you do see growing radicalism also amongst young minorities, Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims, because they're growing up with religion as an identity.
So do you think it was wrong for David Cameron to come out and say...
I think it was wrong. Well, he's doing it because he wants to bring back the people who left because of gay marriage. You know, he's doing it for entirely political reasons, not because he cares. But I think that...
He says he goes to church.
Yeah,
but I think that's a little bit unfair.
Yeah.
First of all, he did not talk about any legislation that's going to come out of this.
Of course he's not going to say it.
He simply said
yeah.
that, first of all, he simply need to talk about the fact that we are Christian, and secondly, he just asked people in the on the volunteer sector to do more stuff. Also, David Cameron's always been a Christian. It's just we've just started noticing. I mean, his friends talk about how his faith helped him with the death of his son. I think this is a very personal thing for him. I don't think it's anything to do with politics whatsoever. But also, on the question of identity, most religious identities are universal. They're not about a particular area or a particular race. They are. No, they're not. They're about defining one as an individual with a relationship to God, and everyone's equal within that relationship. The idea that religions set out to divide you against others, I don't think it really starts there. That can be an unhealthy byproduct. History proves that. But in most people's cases, I mean, you go to many of those Pentecostal church, evangelical, Roman Catholic churches, I'm always amazed by the racial diversity. Yeah. I say amazed, why should I be amazed? There's no reason why I should be amazed, it's London. I just mean that the idea that only one kind of person goes to one kind of denomination is just not true.
Well, ideally you would like that to be the case, since you earlier said that if it was up to you, everyone would convert to Catholicism, which is, in a way, quite an extreme view, which is what you mentioned earlier.
Not if it's up to me, if it's up to them.
Why do you think that's extreme?
Because if you're essentially saying that I want everyone to be the same religion as me, first of all, it's quite arrogant. And on top of that, it's extreme because you'll project that onto the world, and you'll pretty much fulfill that in any way you want to do. And whether it be in Islam, you see terrorists doing that all the time with the way they spread terror.
The nature of religion is you've discovered something about God, right. And if you've discovered that, it's the most wonderful thing in the world, you want to share it with everyone, and you want everyone else to feel the same way as well. That's not unhealthy, that's very human, that's about compassion, it's about love, it's about wanting other people to experience.
But there's so many other religions around that you can extrapolate so many different other views from religions and make up your own individual religion, as it were, without having to follow any other organised religion, which is ultimately controlling masses of populations.
Yeah, I mean, but also why would you want other people to follow in the same way? I mean, maybe they're getting happiness in in different ways. So, I mean, I'm a vegetarian, but I'm not evangelical about it in some ways that, you know, there's a lot of vegetarians are. I mean, you know, it doesn't bother me whether people eat meat or not, well, it does, but, you know, the point is, I don't go around saying you should also become vegetarian.
Yeah, but in elections, politicians, for example, believe something to be true, and they try and get other people to vote for it, don't they? There's no difference.
But that's explicitly because you do have to make a choice at election time, or you should make a choice between who is going to govern you. I mean, I'm not necessarily required to be governed by religion.
No, but at most points in people's lives, they do consider and make a choice about their relationship with God, or whether or not He exists.
This is it, Sonny. Opie, I know Sonny just mentioned that there could be a loss of identity with your choice. Yeah. Do you feel like there's a loss of identity with yourself, or do you feel like as an individual?
Not at all. I think actually becoming a Christian helped me to understand my identity. It wasn't forced upon me, because there was a time in my life when I thought I thought I wasn't a Christian, because, as I said, I was forced to go to church, not necessarily forced, but encouraged to go to church on a Sunday, and I didn't want to, and I kind of went away from Christianity and said, I always felt like there was a God, but I thought, actually, I'm not sure if Christianity is for me. So I went away from Christianity, and, you know, I was just living my life as you do, and so many different things happened in my life that I read up. I actually researched and read up on different types of religions, because I've always believed that there's a God. I'm not the sort of person that believes that everything came out of nothing. So I've always believed that there was a God, and I read up on different types of religions, and Christianity drew me. It drew me to it, and it helped me to form and shape my identity. And as Tim said, I don't think it's arrogant to say that you want everyone to be a Christian, for instance. I think it's something amazing, something that's wonderful, something that saved my life. And if I actually care about anybody else in the world, I would want to share that. Just because I love other people in the world, I would want to share this amazing thing that I think I've discovered.
Do you think that people can be good people without the need of a religion?
I don't think anyone's good, personally, but I mean, that's... You don't think anyone's good? No, I don't think anyone's good, personally.
We're only good when we're told to be good.
Well, exactly. I think deep down, human beings aren't good. And if you actually...
I think we're amazing. I think we're
We can be amazing,
Well,
I don't think we're necessarily.
Let's find out what other people had to say. So, is our multi-faith city becoming more secular? That's our poll question today. We have some boxes to find out what people on the street think about that.
From my experience, people who work in music, particularly urban kind of music, it's kind of become a bit cool to be a Christian or go to church, and that's and not a coincidence whatsoever. But I actually do want to get back into that because I do miss going to Sunday service with my mum when I was younger.
So I would say religion isn't really in vogue. It's like less popular than usual, than in the past anyway. People I know aren't really very religious at all, so it's not a topic for discussion at all.
I don't think it's fashionable. I don't think it's fashionable to be religious. I think if anything, it's unfashionable.
Well, I think people are becoming less religious these days. Yeah, everyone is becoming more open-minded and seeing more things.
Because there are just as many not believing it as I think there are more believing in it, so I don't think it's changed much in recent times.
Oh, I'm particularly not very religious, but I never have been. But personally, I think people are becoming less religious due to society and the media and things like that. I don't really think that people are really driven to stick to their religions.
Okay. Sonny, what you've got to say about that?
Well, I mean, look, I think that there are different streams in different directions. So you do have within minority communities in London, I think, a certain element of them who are becoming more religious. And actually, I think that what you say chimes with a lot of Sikhs, Muslims and Hindus I know who have become more religious because they feel like that's a part of their identity that they wanted to explore. And others obviously have become much more secular. So I think there is actually within those communities as well, you see a sort of a tension between people saying, you know, we should become more religious, we should have more unity, we need to go back to our roots. And other people saying, nah, actually, I don't like the religious stuff, you know, I want to be more relaxed about stuff. So, you know, I see that struggle and I see that tension, and I sort of think that it is very much to do with identity. And that's why I think that broadly mainstream culture, which is much more relaxed about identity, is becoming more secular, whereas minority communities, people are still struggling to figure out, the younger generation, you know, they're born and bred in this country, they're still trying to figure, and religion becomes part of that.
So Sonny's still holding on to this identity thing, sorry, Opie.
Yeah, I don't agree at all. I think Christianity, which is what I can speak about because obviously I'm a Christian, I think for me it's not necessarily to do with me struggling to find an identity. I think it's more to do with...
But that's what you said though, you actually said that you were looking to go through different religions, you wanted to figure out what you were about, and then you came to Christianity.
See, the thing is, for me, Christianity helped me to see what I was and what I was like, in terms of, I think humans generally like to fulfill their own desires. And that's what secularism is. It's basically, oh, I want to do this and I don't want anyone to tell me not to do this. And religion sometimes, and especially for me, Christianity, helps you to see what is morally wrong with some of the choices we make. And I don't think it stops me from doing anything. Actually, it helps me to understand what I'm like and how I can be a better person, a role model in society. And I don't think it restricts me at all. It doesn't restrict me. It actually helps me to feel free. Before, I would say I was restricted. Before, I would say I was living under a cloud of sin. But now, actually, I feel like I'm free. I feel like I'm not under that cloud.
And Tim, how did you find your faith? Did you grow up as a Catholic, or did you convert later life?
That's a very, very long story. I was raised a Baptist, a fundamentalist.
Sum up in about 20 seconds.
I became a Baptist. I dropped it for Marxism and atheism, and I came back to it later, and my only explanation for it is the Holy Spirit. That's the easy 10-second answer.
Wow.
I think there's an interesting tension going on here. For the secular, the idea of identity, I suspect, is linked to things like class, ethnicity, where they grew up. I think when religious people talk about identity, talk about a personal relationship with their particular faith. I was very interested in that clip that girl said, I think people are becoming less religious because they're becoming more open-minded. Actually, in my experience, what religion does to you is it opens your mind to all kinds of concepts that were never there before, about love, about charity, about sin, about mysticism, and about the extraordinary things that you find in the Gospels, and that's what today is all about on Good Friday. So I think there's a disconnect going on here in this conversation that says a lot about how our society is becoming divided between those with a religious and those with a secular perspective.
Zaki, what are your thoughts on that?
I wholly disagree with that, because I think having left Islam, which in a way parallels a lot of the things in Catholicism, a lot of the ideas in Catholicism, I think I actually became more open-minded and I was more open to other aspects of other religions, for example, Buddhism, Taoism, even more psychedelic experiences that gave me something that I felt was a truly religious experience.
Okay, well,
and that's difficult to
Zaki, thank you so
deny.
much. Sunny, OP, Tim, we can talk about this all day. You can still talk about it online. But coming up